The room was silent. Too silent. A hush had fallen over the palace, the kind of silence that makes your stomach twist and your chest tighten. Outside, the world mourned the passing of a monarch, but inside, tension crackled like static. William stood in the gilded hallway, a mixture of disbelief and anger etched on his face. He looked directly at his younger brother and spoke a line that would echo across the royal family for years to come. You're not family anymore. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It was a sentence so heavy, so final, that it felt like a gavel striking the family's fate. But what had Harry done to earn such a damning verdict? The answer was shocking, almost cinematic in its betrayal. Harry, the prince who had once seemed the public's favorite, the rebellious younger son, had secretly recorded private conversations. Not just casual chats or family banter. These were intimate, deeply personal discussions. Conversations with Charles, with Camilla, with William himself. Conversations that took place in moments of grief, of vulnerability, even during the Queen's funeral. Moments that should have been sacred were transformed into ammunition. And the recordings weren't left to gather dust in a drawer. Some of them, according to William, had been shared with producers, allegedly used to shape a Netflix docuseries that painted the family in a very specific light. The betrayal wasn't just familial, it was public, commercial, and strategic. The very idea that private words spoken in confidence could be turned into a television narrative sent shockwaves through the palace walls. Royal aides scrambled, devices were confiscated, and a quiet, invisible war began between brothers, a war fought not with swords but with secrets. Imagine for a moment the tension of that funeral. The weight of history pressing down, cameras flashing, the public watching every measured step. Amidst all of that, Harry allegedly kept a device, recording, listening, capturing the grief and intimacy of a family mourning its matriarch. How could one reconcile such an act? Was it ambition? Fear? Resentment? Or was it something darker, a calculated betrayal that would irreversibly alter the monarchy's inner sanctum? The palace had seen scandals before. It had weathered storms, divorces, public criticisms, leaks, and even the infamous Camilla, Charles controversies. But this was different. This was a brother recording a brother, a son recording a father, and the implications were staggering. It challenged the very notion of trust in the royal family, proving that even blood ties could be strained to breaking under the weight of ambition and secrecy. From the outside, Harry had always been a paradox. He was the public rebel, the soldier, the humanitarian, and the charming prince who had captured global attention. He was praised for his work with veterans, for his willingness to speak candidly about mental health, for standing up against perceived injustice. But behind closed doors, according to William, a different story unfolded. A story of secrets, of surveillance, of turning private moments into currency. The revelation of these recordings did more than shock the family. It terrified them. Imagine realizing that every private complaint, every candid reflection, every raw expression of grief might have been captured, stored, and potentially monetized. Conversations about strategy, succession, family dynamics, and personal vulnerabilities were now at risk of public exposure. The palace, a place built on centuries of protocol and privacy, suddenly felt exposed, violated from within. And at the center of it all was Harry, the man who had once been celebrated, now seen as a figure of suspicion. The emotional tension between the brothers was palpable. William, the future king, felt not just betrayal but a profound sadness. The kind that comes when someone you love most turns against the very foundations of trust. And the decision was not just emotional, it was practical. The monarchy could not risk further leaks. If one device existed, there could be more. If one betrayal occurred, who could guarantee it wouldn't happen again? William had no choice. The sentence, the declaration of exclusion, was a protective measure as much as it was personal. But the intrigue didn't stop there. Whispers circulated that the content of the recordings had made its way to entertainment executives, feeding storylines that would later appear on a globally streamed platform. How could a family navigate the intersection of grief, loyalty, and global media scrutiny when private words became public narratives? How could trust survive when one brother had allegedly weaponized intimacy against the other? And yet, even amidst the outrage and heartbreak, questions remained. What exactly had Harry recorded? Were these recordings motivated by fear, anger, or ambition? How did the palace uncover them? Were aides complicit or shocked? And most importantly, how had these revelations been kept under wraps until the right moment? Until William could publicly confront Harry? Every unanswered question compounded the drama, creating a sense of suspense that gripped not just the royal family, but the public as well. Picture the scene. A gilded room, tapes and devices confiscated, aides whispering in corridors, Harry pacing, tense, perhaps anticipating confrontation. William's calm but icy demeanor contrasted sharply with Harry's restless energy. Two brothers, once inseparable in childhood, now divided by secrets, distrust, and what some might call ambition run amok. The emotional stakes were not just personal, they were historical. The monarchy, its public image, its internal cohesion, all teetered precariously on the edge of scandal. And this was only the beginning. Because if these recordings were only a part of the story, what else might Harry have done? What other actions, long hidden, might explain the cold severity of William's declaration? Every secret revealed hinted at another, deeper layer. Every revelation from the past seemed to cast long shadows over the present. The public, accustomed to seeing royal drama as distant, now found themselves peering into the intimate heart of betrayal. So what happens when one brother decides that family loyalty has limits? When the weight of grief, history, and responsibility collides with perceived betrayal? The answer is rarely simple, and in this case, it was explosive. The palace, usually a symbol of stability and tradition, became a theater of intrigue, emotion, and fractured trust. William's declaration wasn't just a reaction. It was a turning point, a signal that the rules of royal conduct had been breached in ways that could never be undone. As the world absorbed the shocking news, social media erupted. Public opinion splintered. Fans of Harry accused the palace of overreaction. Supporters of William defended the decision as necessary, a line that could never be crossed. The tension between personal loyalty and public duty was laid bare. Everyone, from royal commentators to casual observers, was forced to grapple with the same question: how far would one go to protect the family, and at what cost? And here's the twist that would keep the world talking. The story wasn't only about Harry recording conversations. It was about timing, intent, and exposure. The most sensitive, intimate moments, the Queen's final days, private family discussions about succession, personal fears and doubts, had all been recorded. It was as if every vulnerability was transformed into leverage. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most sacred spaces are not immune to betrayal. The introduction of this story sets the stage for an unprecedented exploration of family, loyalty, and secrecy. Over the next hour, we'll unravel the details of Harry's alleged recordings, the discovery by William and his aides, the fallout within the royal family, the public storm that followed, and the implications for the monarchy's future. You'll see how one act of secrecy can ripple outward, affecting millions and altering perceptions forever. The palace was quiet that morning, but the stillness carried a weight heavier than any silence the walls had ever held. From the gilded corridors to the vast ceremonial halls, there was a tension that seemed almost tangible, as if the air itself was holding its breath. It wasn't just grief that made the palace feel different. It was anticipation, an unspoken awareness that something was brewing, something beneath the surface, something no one could ignore. The calm before the storm. For years, Harry had been cast in a familiar role. The charming, sometimes reckless younger son, a prince who bucked tradition but captured public sympathy. The public adored his vulnerability, his willingness to speak candidly about struggles that the royal family often kept hidden behind layers of protocol and polish. He was a hero in the eyes of millions, a man who could bring the monarchy closer to the people, or so everyone thought. But behind the carefully curated appearances, another story was quietly unfolding, one that would soon rupture the fragile calm of Buckingham Palace. The funeral of the Queen was meant to be a moment of unity, a display of loyalty and respect. Cameras, dignitaries, and mourners all watched as the family appeared stoic, composed, seemingly in control. But as the world saw the solemn bows and precise movements, those inside knew the tension was suffocating. Words were measured, glances calculated, and, according to William, someone was listening. Someone was capturing every private word, every fleeting expression, every hint of vulnerability. Harry, the youngest son, was allegedly keeping a device close at hand. A small, seemingly innocuous object that could record hours of conversation. He wasn't just observing, he was documenting. A brother recording a brother, a son recording his father. And not just in casual settings, but during private moments where grief was raw, where trust should have been absolute. The implications were staggering. The betrayal, if true, cut deeper than any disagreement over inheritance or royal protocol. It was personal. It's worth pausing for a moment to consider what that means. Imagine sitting with your family during a moment of mourning, speaking honestly, perhaps even emotionally, and discovering that every word, every sigh, every whispered thought might be preserved, analyzed, and shared. How do you process that kind of betrayal? How does it shape your sense of security, trust, and even love? For William and the other royals, this wasn't theoretical, it was their reality. Before the Queen's funeral, the tension had already been simmering. William and Harry had a complex relationship, marked by camaraderie, rivalry, and occasional distance. Childhood memories of playing in the palace gardens, sharing confidences, and defending one another in public were now overshadowed by suspicion, resentment, and unspoken grievances. Their bond, once considered unbreakable, was slowly eroding under the weight of past hurts and the present betrayal. The calm wasn't just a backdrop, it was deceptive. To the public, everything appeared orderly and dignified. To the royal family, every smile and every nod carried layers of subtext. Who could be trusted? Who might be hiding motives? It was in this charged environment that Harry allegedly decided to make his move, recording conversations that would later be described by William as a breach of trust so severe that it could not be ignored. Aides later recounted the moment they realized something was off. The small device, tucked away, unassuming, almost invisible, raised alarms. The presence of it confirmed the worst suspicions. Harry had been recording. And while the device itself could be confiscated, the emotional damage was already done. William, Charles, and Camilla had their most private moments captured without consent. The raw grief of losing the Queen, discussions of family strategy, candid reflections on relationships, all of it potentially compromised. But why would Harry do this? The public was quick to speculate, and rumors swirled almost immediately. Some suggested fear of being excluded, of losing influence, of not being heard. Others claimed ambition, a calculated move to gain leverage, to shape narratives for public consumption. And then there were those who argued for a more personal motive, a sense of betrayal or resentment that had been festering for years. The truth, as is often the case in royal scandals, was likely a complex mix of all three. Even the staff were caught off guard. Palace aides, who had dedicated their lives to serving the family, now found themselves in a precarious position. Loyal to the monarchy but shocked by the alleged breach, they scrambled to secure the device, assess the content, and report up the chain of command. Security protocols, long thought sufficient, were tested in ways they had never been before. A palace built on centuries of tradition and discipline suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable, and uncertain. And yet, Harry's actions didn't exist in isolation. They were part of a broader pattern of tension within the family. Years of disagreements over public image, media engagements, and personal decisions had created fissures. Harry's departure from royal duties, the couple's move to the United States, and prior interviews that revealed intimate family details had already strained relationships. The recordings, if true, represented the ultimate escalation. It wasn't just words that were betrayed. It was trust itself. The calm before the storm wasn't just a metaphor. It was a real, tangible force in the palace. It allowed everyone to catch their breath, to pretend that normalcy could be maintained even as suspicion gnawed at the edges of every interaction. But the storm was inevitable. The moment the recordings were discovered, the palace hierarchy shifted. Decisions had to be made. Allegiances were tested. And the question at the heart of it all, could Harry still be considered family, loomed larger than anyone could ignore. As the world watched a perfectly choreographed funeral unfold on television, the palace was experiencing chaos behind the scenes. A single act, recording private conversations, had created a ripple effect that threatened relationships, reputations, and the very cohesion of the family. The quiet tension of that morning was the precursor to a scandal that would dominate headlines and social media, a scandal that would force William to make a decision that no one imagined he could deliver. In the coming days, aides would work tirelessly to secure evidence. Conversations would be reviewed, timelines reconstructed, and the family would grapple with both the emotional and strategic consequences. William's response, calm yet devastating, would set the tone for the family's handling of the situation. His declaration, "You're not family anymore," would resonate far beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace, signaling a fracture that might never be repaired. The calm before the storm is always the most deceptive moment. It lulls you into a false sense of security, masking the tension that has been building quietly, invisibly, for months or even years. And in this case, that calm masked an act that would irreversibly alter relationships, public perception, and perhaps the course of royal history.